Hey, welcome back to the Control Pod. Woo! Definitely didn't start that again. That's all good. Parker Floris, welcome to the podcast. Founder of Creators Trove, the founders Creators Magazine, and also a photographer and creator. Thank you so much for coming down. I know you've got a very short stint in Melbourne, so we really appreciate your time and can't wait to get chatting about who you are and what you do. But I guess for the listeners, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Parker Floris. I am a photographer and founder of Creators Trove, the magazine for the creators shaping tomorrow. And my whole goal with the magazine was trying to capture the interesting creators around the world who are doing something a little bit different and who potentially overlooked by other publications, especially those outside the United States. Because we've heard so much about those creators for so many years, but there's so many people I'd meet. I'm like, you're doing something really interesting, really impactful, and just trying to capture that and use that to hopefully inspire and educate that next generation of creators.
Wow. Jaw to the floor.
Chef's kiss.
How good. How did you get into the space? Let's start from
Yeah,
there.
bring us back the very beginning.
The very beginning. I mean, I've been doing a range of things ever since I was a kid. Obviously, starts in the stop motion days with the little Lego figures, and you're like, this is fun. And I'm like, I don't really have the patience to go pro with this. And you kind of realize that at like 10 years old, you're like, not for me. And then I shifted a bit into, I think, magic back in the day. So that helped with my sort of communication abilities. The ability to stand on a stage and know everything's going wrong and have to look like it's all fine.
Wow.
That's a whole endeavor in itself. And then I kind of got a bit more, or got obsessed with basketball for a minute there. But always through the back, there was a bit of photo and video. And sort of as I was getting to the end of high school, it was kind of like, what path do I want to take? I knew I wanted to do media because I always had this sense growing up that you saw that a lot of the traditional media ecosystems were very much undermining a lot of the voices of young people and a lot of the struggles of the general populace in favor of certain interests. And I was like, okay, can I try and help change that, try and reestablish sort of the fourth estate again as a genuine pillar of democracy? And I was like, what's the best way to do it? In uni, I started working on like a sort of a political news startup with a friend. And I'm like, this is kind of depressing looking at news 24/7. Like is there a better way to achieve that? And I saw Yes Theory. I'm like, they're achieving the same goal of like openness and communication, but in a way that seems a lot more ability to consume than trying to just like go through that traditional news angle. And it seems more fun. People are more willing to consume it. It's the whole principle of hiding the veggies. I'm like, okay, there's something there. But as I was talking to sort of someone at the end of high school, he was saying that there's a big difference between people that came to him and like liked the idea of writing versus like woke up every single day and wrote. I'm like, well, I don't wake up every single day and like go to traditional films, watch Tarantino, whatever. And then Dad was like, how about this content stuff you've been talking about? Because back then it was still like the Logan Paul era. You kind of got into it by accident. There was no like path you could take to get into this space. It was kind of like you got lucky and you took advantage of it. Yeah. But you were starting to see glimpses of, business strategies and people deliberately going into it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll pay attention to it. So I started trying to work with people in the industry, worked a bit with #paid and Changes Studios, started producing content, put out probably, 1,000 different videos throughout that time. And then I had a couple pop off. And that tended to be when KSI and Logan launched Prime in Sydney. Those videos went mega viral, as well as when Beta Squad tried to host a meetup in Sydney, which just went catastrophically wrong. I ended up sending some photos from that meet to the manager of Beta Squad, and he said, "You captured the most traumatic day of my life." I'm like,
no
cool.
Way.
I think I need to find that quote again and put it on the website.
You found the email of the Beta Squad's manager?
Yeah, well, I connected with him on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's great for that, which is a whole nother discussion we can bring up later. But yeah, it's just been incredible the amount of people I've managed to connect with and link with while in the UK. So from that, I was finishing uni, doing a bit of a gap year, and the Changes Studios, which is sort of they're a company out of Australia, but they host events around the world. Like they tend to run a lot of accelerator programs for YouTubers. So if you've got like 100,000 subs, how can you go from that to not just like struggling, but to thriving? So they were hosting an event during COVID with Cleo Abram. And I asked her, I'm like, I'm seeing these sparks of things working, but I'm not quite sure what what do I pull out of that so I can replicate this process? And she said something that made me realize that the clear through line there is like, a lot of my videos might seem similar, but the videos that did perform well in particular had a clear line of creator communities. It was the fact that so many people were showing up to see Logan and KSI launch their drink. It was the fact that so many people just wanted to meet Beta Squad or talk about Yes Theory's Project Iceman. It's like, okay, there's something here. But if I want to keep producing these videos, get out the next magazine, well, then I'll need to be in a place where more of these things happen. So I was like, fuck it, I got to move somewhere. US, UK visas are easier. Okay, I'll head over there. 6 weeks notice, no plan, knew no one, had no job, no house, nothing. But just naive optimism, like, I'll be working with a Sideman in 2 months. I didn't work with the Sidemen in 2 months.
You're manifesting
It's been
that
nearly
shit.
2 years later. Still haven't gotten a full-time job, just all through freelance.
There's a bit of that Delulu in there. It's like, I'm going to
You
just
need a
do
bit
it.
of that, though.
And just yeah.
Figure it out.
I agree. You need a little bit of like Delulu to just make the move.
Well, I nearly had it as well. Someone offered me a job like 2 weeks in. I'm like, great, I've done it. And then I do the interview and they're actually like, nah, sorry. I'm like, what?
Oh, with the Sidemen.
No, with another creator.
Another creator, yeah.
So it was close. But yeah, I think it's a tough market. And I think learning that you realize how, because creators tend to not have money oftentimes. So that it's really, it's a tough pathway. And that's what I realized in Australia is if people can't go full time, they can't hire help. If they can't hire help, there is no pathway for anyone to take off. The jobs I was getting in the creator industry in London was a lot of like filming street interviews. And they can do that because they've got a brand deal and cool, they can hire some help to film that. But if you're in Oz, like there's no brand deal. So you just kind of have to film everything yourself. So if you're a young creator wanting to get experience, really the only jobs you can get, like both Aiden and I worked at our university because that was sort of the only thing that was on offer at the time.
That's right, yeah.
So it makes it a bit tougher.
Wow. Jaw to the floor. That's insane.
That is an
that's
insane
a really
process.
great way of like sort of capturing the creator space as well. And especially I think in Australia, like so many creators do end up struggling to find jobs and everything. I think, well, shout out Hugh. I think you guys follow each other. Hugh.
Yes,
you do.
yes.
Well, shout out Hugh because I think he's doing a really great thing in being able to educate a lot of the videographers that are up and coming. And yes, you do have to eat shit for a little bit, right? Like you have to do the free gigs, you have to do all these like things to build up your portfolio to then get, I don't know, onboarded by someone cool or for you to start your own thing. And we're very grateful that I guess we've been able to create a sort of community ourselves and be able to have our own clients because it's tough. It's a tough industry. And I think that's why maybe people shy away from it or they end up sort of falling on their dream to be a creator. So what was that like for you? Because you sound extremely passionate in being able to reveal and sort of highlight creators who are doing cool things, but maybe get washed out by traditional media or they just don't have the facilities or the funding to be able to do what they want to do.
I think things are starting to change, fortunately. Like you can still tell though when I talk to my British creator friends is they'll have the exact same demographic as an American creator but get half the rate because there's still this perception that like they're worthless even though once again the demographics, the audience is identical. So that makes it tough and Australia is an even step below that. But what I have noticed talking to lots of different like A-list brands in the creator space is that they want to get more involved in Australia. They just haven't taken that leap yet. So one of the pathways that I'm trying to work with Aiden and Hugh and some other people is like, can we facilitate that? That they have cash that they want to spend. They really want to capture this young generation of Australians. Can we basically create the events for them, create the content for them that they can jump in on so that cool, they can fund that next generation of creators and that creator will be forever loyal to that brand because they're like, they were there for me from the beginning. It's like I'm with Sony because they had the camera that I needed at the time and it's very unlikely I'm going to switch. And it's the same thing. Can we try and create that experience for everyone else? That cool, this event was possible because we got something like Sony or Insta360 or Shopify on board. We're able to produce this content or the next magazine because this person was able to support. And I think there's some really interesting collaborative relationships that can form. Because I think a lot of the time, if you're watching like Amazon Prime and then an ad comes on, you hate the ad, you hate the show, and you hate the platform because it's a completely detractive experience. But if you're able to create a situation like Creator Camp does, where like, cool, we were able to put on this massive film fest in Austin because Patreon was sponsoring it. Great, now you love Patreon because you were able to have such a good time because they were there. It's not deteriorating the experience because they got in the way. They actually added to it. And I think more creators need to think about how to create more an additive experience rather than it taking away. Rather than, cool, you're watching a YouTube video and then it cuts into an ad for 20 seconds. You're like, skip, I don't even know what the brand was.
Ever.
Yeah,
It's the worst
interesting.
thing ever.
Well, you see that on YouTube as well because people obviously like they intertwine their ads. Like some YouTubers do it really well. Some people are pretty blatant and they're like, guys, I got to get like, food on the table and everything. So just mind this for the next 2 minutes while I talk about like Squarespace or something.
My favorite one is David Dobrik's SeatGeek. That always just comes in at random times of their video, but just like it's part of that like culture. It's like not even something that puts you off because you're like, you know that he's going to have to somehow say SeatGeek and etc. So I think, it's like adding that
it's the
experience.
intro giving you anticipation to what's to come. It's not getting in the way. It's like, okay, I know something's great's going to happen because they're involved.
And I think that's why we're seeing almost not the death of UGC, but like I think people are a little bit more apprehensive when it comes to user generated content and people like promoting like this is my top cafe in Melbourne that you need to go to that has probably slid some cash under my pocket for me to talk good about it. Like, I think, it's pretty interesting that, what you say about partnerships, right? Because it should be a partnership. Like you should both believe in each other's vision in terms of everything. So Patreon makes so much sense. for a creator camp, right? Because everyone is supporting each other.
And I think in that case as well, it was like even more personal.
Yes.
In the fact that Jack just saw these guys hustling and they're like, I want to help them because I see a younger version of myself. So even that is such a unique relationship that you're just not really going to get elsewhere unless you find someone who just sees the vision and is willing to find a way to support it. It was basically like, how much cash do you need and how can we sort of help, rather than it being purely extractional of like, okay, how many videos can we get out of you? It's much more like, I see a vision here and I want to help with that. Yeah. I think trying to find those relationships, that's key, because that then allows you and gives you the freedom to really have some creative liberties rather than always trying to fight to pay the next bill or just trying to get out the deliverables in time. It gives you a bit more flexibility there. And you need to over-deliver on the back end, of course. But it's just like you're putting trust in each other that something will work out here. It's tough to find, but if you can.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about vision. You went to the UK with a vision. What was the next thing that you did when you got off the plane?
I was kind of like in a depressed state because I just come from New York where I'd gone to this published press event. The city in New York is like so vibrant, so energetic. And then I move out to like way East London in the middle of nowhere. And you're like, what have I done? Like I just met these crazy people, was having this great time, and now it's just dead. You know, it was so not good. I'm like, I need to go back. I need to find a way to get back to New York as fast as possible. But then slowly I started finding ground. And it was a struggle those first 6 months because it's just like nothing was happening. And at some points, I'm just like, I need to go home. And mum's like, just stay past Christmas. I'm like, okay, I'll make it. And then it's sort of in that February, things started picking up again. I started getting enough jobs to pay the bills. I started meeting more and more creators. I went to Film Fest in April and started meeting up with like Simon Squibb's crew in just after that. I was like, okay, something's happening here. People are seeing something in the magazine. Okay, maybe I should hang around a bit longer. So then that gave me just enough boost to work throughout last year where I started getting invited to like Downing Street and then doing the US again, working with Creator Camp, getting onboarded with them towards the end of the year and so many different things. But I had just enough sparks to sort of push me through. And once I asked the guy who invited me to Downing Street, I asked him, why did he have me along? And he's like, well, I knew a couple of videographers, but you had worked with more of my friends. I'm like, oh, that's literally all it takes.
Word of mouth.
It's just, yeah, and that trust that, okay, you've worked with them, you'll be fine. Yeah. And whether it's with that crowd that allows you or gives you those opportunities, or whether it be, you're doing video content for like the local cafe, like it's all the same. There's literally no difference. It's just people don't, like you might think there's a lot of photographers and videographers because you know a lot, but most people in the world maybe have like one friend who knows someone and that's kind of the extent of it. Oh. So you just kind of need to be able to know and meet as many people as possible because then you can start being in that word of mouth networks.
I love that perspective. I feel like we get caught up sometimes, especially, with all these other creators in Melbourne, because we're starting to see them obviously a lot more, like with, Aiden creating From Me to You. Sometimes, and like, honestly, we get overwhelmed because it's like, there's so many videographers, there's so many creators, like how can we put ourselves out there and, do what they're doing and be good and all that. But then the perspective that you have is like, but actually, like, how many people know videographers and creators? And is it just a matter of like just putting yourself out there, no matter what people are doing? Because then then you're gonna hit that one person that's gonna know someone and go from there as well. So
absolutely. And those websites that like help you get jobs, they're a waste of time because they're so oversaturated and people are just competing for the lowest price. Where if it's word of mouth, there's no competing for the lowest price because people are like, I don't know anyone else, and trust is more important. Like most of the jobs I was getting, it was like, we had a terrible person before. We know you're not going to be terrible, and that's enough.
Well, that's literally happened to us recently. So
yeah,
I think. Downstairs, yeah.
Yeah, do you see the Orange Cafe we're doing content for them now as well.
Yeah,
so that was all
them. But you're so right. It's like this idea of the abundance mindset, right? But I think there's obviously the combination of like imposter syndrome, comparison's the thief of joy. Like you're all constantly comparing as well.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? Like the concept of this tall poppy syndrome in Australia, the imposter syndrome.
We were talking about it last night. It was Aiden, Riley, and I, and we were. Because Aiden said that he'd experienced a lot of it. And I'm like, sure, there's probably bits of it back in high school, like the whole try hard sort of thing. But like,
yeah, you got that.
But I think once you graduate, that kind of ends. And I think there's more respect in this industry as well. And I haven't noticed it since. Like, I haven't noticed any gatekeeping. Sure, back in the school days, there was maybe a bit of mockery, but I've never noticed gatekeeping. And it might be just because I've been around the right people. I've known how to ask the questions the right way. Like one of my first jobs was with Rogue Productions or Rogue Projects, whatever they're called. And they did a lot of like indie theater work. And the guy would just straight up send me the Excel spreadsheet of all of the below and over the line of like, this is how much we made. This is how much everyone's getting. You're getting a split cut. And that transparency allowed me to learn. And I think same thing, he saw a bit of me in himself. It's like, okay, he's PR. I was studying PR. Okay, this is interesting. And like, sure, it helped. I was able to work for less because I just needed portfolio and experience. But they were completely transparent, completely honest. I never felt like I was being ripped off because they actually gave me a higher percentage because they didn't want me to be paid less than a certain amount. So they were willing to they were always extremely generous and extremely transparent. I'd ask any question, he'd tell me, he's like, cool, this is normally what videographers get, what are the standard rates are. And then when COVID checks started coming out and businesses started getting, extra subsidies, I got more because the percentages increased, etc. But I think I've always been around people who are extremely transparent, and it meant that has never gotten in the way of things. And same thing in the UK, everyone's really open there because everyone wants everyone to do well. I think as long as you ask things the right way, sure, if you say, hey, how much did you earn last year? It might be a bit forward, but if you're like, hey, how much do you think I should charge for this thing?
Yeah.
It means you're pretty much getting the same answer, but they feel a bit more comfortable because like, cool, then they can tailor it to you. They're like, oh, well, based on these factors, you can probably get away with this sort of thing, but you could work towards this.
Yeah.
I think that makes it far, far easier
Yeah, so
to get away
you feel
with.
like the sort of concept of tall poppy is definitely like eased out a bit more, and it's more.
I think it's just a matter of growing up, right? Like we were talking about this with Tom from Douchebug as well, and he's just saying like how it's more of like when you actually do the thing, you don't actually get as much kickback as you think that you will get, and it's this idea of or concept of fear and how it's like an ocean that's a mile wide and an inch deep, right? Like you think it's this massive thing that you have to overcome, but as soon as you take that first step, you're like, oh shit, like it's actually not that deep.
And I think a lot of it's about ego as well. That's where I think more tall poppy lies. Is like, we're happy for Australians to do great. We love Hugh Jackman, we love Hugo Weaving, etc. But they're extremely humble. Like I've met some of them before. Well, like Hugo Weaving, we've done, because back in school, for drama, you'd always go to those shows where they do those were great. Yeah. But the point being is I think it's about you can achieve, but just don't have an ego about it. Because there's still a bit of that American culture. Most of the Americans I met are great, phenomenal creators, but occasionally you'll meet someone who's like, oh, I'm just so much better than everyone else. It's like, dude, you got 10K followers on Instagram by posting selfies. So like, you're not a big deal. Like, shut up. But I think it's the Australian and British culture really keeps people humble. And I think that's why things like the Sidemen has been able to last for so long, because they're just friends first and they really keep their egos in check. Because sure, they might be some of the biggest, they might be some of the biggest creators in the world, but they're like, we're still mates. We're still going to tear each other down. And that's what kind of keeps it level.
I love that.
But they're not going to stop each other from trying to achieve great things, but they're really going to, if you think you're better than everyone else, it's not going to last long.
Remind you like where your roots were.
Yeah. You're still going to the pub at the end of the week with the same friends you've had since high school. Like,
which is so interesting because like I always grew up idolizing KSI, but he was always the one that I guess always got the most flack from everyone as well. And I feel like everyone kept his ego down as well. I'm just like, yeah, it's fair enough. But
he probably realized that when he did his US stint, he's like, I can't do this because everyone's hyping it, especially in that era of like LA vloggers. Like it was too much.
Logan Paul, the whole Japan thing with Logan Paul. Oh my God.
We did that in uni. That was funny. One of my crisis communication courses. The person just puts up the photo of Logan Paul.
I've made a grave mistake. Yeah, he's like fully like, I'm staring down the camera.
Lapse in judgment.
Oh my Lord. Well, what's it like actually? Because, I think we put all these creators on like a pedestal because they've got millions, billions of views and like millions of followers and all these subscribers and all those sorts of things. You've been able to fortunately meet a lot of them and you've sort of had them on your feed and on your page. What are they like in person? I think we forget that they are people as well.
I think that's the thing is you realize you're like sitting in a room with people with massive followings, but you wouldn't notice. Like it's like anyone on the bus is like, you realize more and more how normal and also how unextraordinary most people are. Occasionally you see a few and you're like, I get it. But most you're like, you're one of the biggest podcasts in the world and you're like, you're not that great. Like you're actually kind of not that good at most of the things you're doing. You just kind of got lucky in some ways. You had a good startup, which gave you a bunch of money that allowed you to do things, but that's about all that's going for you. Yeah. And I think it helps because then you see so many other people who are hustling and like, you've got way more talent and way more drive. So it's just a matter of time until something works out for you. But one of, I think, the most incredible people I've met is Jack Conti, the founder of Patreon. And just seeing him interact with people at Camp Film Fest, and just the fact that I think what works for him is that he is us. He was a struggling artist. He knows what it is to travel for 2 years and no one show up to one of your shows. He's not like Zuckerberg or Bezos, who has never been an artist in their life and doesn't know what that struggle is. He knows how to connect with people, and the fact that he was just pouring his heart out for like 20 minutes to each and every single person was something I'd never seen before and set a completely different standard for someone in his position to have. And I think I haven't seen anyone else remotely live up to that. And I think because he was able to connect so deeply with people, because he knows that struggle, he also knows how to serve that community best. And he really felt like that proud father interacting with everyone and trying to really encourage them to pursue their dreams and their arts. And I think that really was so different, and I just did not expect to see with someone like him. But makes so much sense, after the fact, analyzing why that was indeed the case. And in terms of other people, like who's really interesting characters. I mean, obviously I've met people like Miniminter and Max Klemenko and Simon Squibb and characters like that. And most of them like fine. Miniminter was cool. He was very normal. I was setting up to film with another creator and turns out was setting up outside their office. So he just opens the door. I'm like, Simon, what are you doing here?
Way. That's insane.
An interesting note I've noted though, that really like you can see it in their eyes, the flip. The first time I noticed it was I was in the middle of nowhere, South Africa. I'm talking like 6 hours out of Joburg, like middle of nowhere. And I walk past someone, I'm like, that looks like a really good doppelganger of like Chelsea Yamasir. And I keep walking a bit further. I'm like, that also looks like a really good doppelganger of Sam Calder. And I'm like, there's no way there's like 2 doppelgangers in a row. That would be too much of a coincidence. They're like, oh, that must be them. Yeah. So I started chatting to Sam. And as soon as I said, I know your roommate, like it was an instant flip. It goes from stranger to like friend. Yeah. And I started noticing that more and more. Same thing happened with, what was the next one I had? I had that with, when I met Simon, I knew some of his employees, so that made it a bit easier there. Oh, same thing when I was chatting with Ashley Alexander in New York. As soon as I said I just came from my fam from the Creator Camp event, it was like, oh, okay. So all of a sudden you establish yourself as an insider rather than a complete stranger.
It's like you're breaking that fourth wall of like parasocial that they probably have to experience.
My friend trusts you, I can trust you as well, rather than being a complete stranger. It gives you a bit of context. Like I find that with some creators, I keep seeing you, but I don't know who you are, and it makes me uneasy because I have no understanding of your context or where you're from. You just keep appearing. And I feel like by having that connection, it immediately breaks that, establishes you a bit more, and gives you a bit more context of where you're from rather than complete strangers. Yeah. And I had that as well when I first met Thomas Bragg. It was like, he was still open and great at Camp Film Fest, but then when I saw him a couple of weeks later in London, it was like he was straight in for the hug because all of a sudden you had broken that wall. It was like, okay, now you're an insider. It was just way, way more open. Yeah. So I think it's always trying to find ways to establish yourself as a colleague and not just as a fan. And I think LinkedIn has been great for that as well because it's really easy to connect with operators on there. And then you can meet them in real life and like nerd out about the same shit. Like sure, you could interview Beast, but you're not really going to get any new information out of him. Everything that could be asked has been asked. Yeah. But I'm at Camp Film Fest. I was able to meet Rafe, who used to be his head of post-production for Beast Philanthropy. And then I got him in the magazine as well. And I'm like, there's so many different interesting takes you can get from him because no one chatted to him before. What is the perspective of someone who edits those philanthropy videos, why they work, what doesn't work, what he would like, but what doesn't work with the algorithm and has to be adjusted. And that just gives you such a different perspective than just the mainstream people. And I think what a lot of people miss is they see the front end, but really the back end is so much easier to access because if you're both working in the industry, you're both just as passionate about the same things. And they've also got a lot less attention on them. There's a million people trying to meet up with KSI, but there's very few people trying to meet up with his editor comparatively. Yeah. So it's much easier to connect these individuals than it is with the front end people who are so much more in demand.
Holy shit.
Well, I couldn't even imagine the back end sort of process as well. There'd be like so many staff members, so many team members, managers, planners, like all that. And then just getting to meet them and understand their experience would in itself be just as sort of the same experience as like almost meeting KSI too, because then you can say like, well, I see his day to day, I know this, whatever this happens. And
you literally see his fuck ups, like all his bloopers, everything,
yeah,
right?
Imagine the timeline for those videos. Stress me out.
We do think about that sometimes. Like some celebrities, if they had the same portfolio as KSI, they'd be instantly cancelled if that was found the next day. But because
so
he never came with the guise of being perfect. Like you have certain individuals, let's say politicians, they need this sort of perception of being untouchable, of being perfect, this idealized version. Yeah. But if you never come into that in the first place, then there's no like, oh, you've done something that's maybe a bit iffy. It's like, oh yeah, that's just their character. They make sort of, harsh jokes. But if you're trying to preserve this image, like you shouldn't try. I think it's a bit different nowadays because there is much more of that openness. And before I was trying to create this pristine image of a band or whatever, where I think now because you see people documenting their whole journey, like the first article I wrote for my newsletter was one of the first chapters in the magazine with Rachel Zegler. And I was like, there's really an interesting shift now where every single Gen Z celebrity you see coming up, you can see their journey because they were documenting that before anyone cared, before there was a documentary crew behind them. And that allows you to really get a glimpse and this pathway to success that you're like, cool, this is how they did it. Maybe that's how I can do it too. That once again, just would not be visible in an era where you only had like news clippings once they had already made it.
Yeah.
So it just provides a completely different glimpse into their lives and those stories.
Well, it's sorry, you go.
Well, it seems like you've accumulated so much like a wealth of knowledge and perspective and all these cool experiences. But where do you see yourself, I guess, with the magazine and everything in your life as well? I feel like this is your pod as well. So I'd love to hear about sort of where you want to take everything to.
Well, one of the things I wanted to do is sort of create the opportunities in Australia so people don't have to follow in my footsteps. In that, the three things that I identified that Australia was lacking was, for one, spotlight. So that's what the magazine tries to solve, is shining a spotlight on people doing some really interesting, incredible stuff here. The second thing was financing. That if you can't go full-time, you just can't operate in the industry. So it's like, can we bring some of those brands down under to try and just create opportunities for people? And then the third thing was community and connection. So I've already hosted a couple of events. I'm going to host another one on March 1st in Sydney, just trying to create an opportunity for people to come together, meet others like themselves. And even in just the events where I invited people around to my house, people like, this is incredible. Like, I've been to a bunch of events over Christmas, but just not people that were interested in the same things that I was. And I saw finally being around people who could nerd out about and plus one everything that you were doing, how incredible that is, how that is able to build your confidence and your experience and your knowledge base. And it's like, okay, I need to host more of these events and really give people the opportunity to find friends, collaborators, mentors. So those are the three things I identified. And what I'm trying to build out is the spotlight, the financing, and the opportunities for people to connect.
Beautiful.
Amazing. But like with Creators Trove, is that going to become the Australian issue? Is that going to be like worldwide? Where do you see this going?
I think it still covers a lot of worldwide creators,
Yes.
but it's really just trying to highlight the people who have maybe been traditionally overlooked or the stories that people are missing. So I always like taking headline stories and finding what is the narrative that hasn't been discussed. I made a carousel last year and ended up doing way better than I expected because I didn't realize how much of a trend it was at the time. But I noticed for the series The Summer I Turned Pretty that they released the first 2 seasons of it for free on YouTube. And I'm like, why would they do that? Wouldn't they want people to subscribe to the streaming service to watch the show? But I realized if you get people to watch the first 2 seasons, there's no way they're not paying to watch that 3rd season.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, there's something interesting that people completely missed because they're like, oh, cool, I'm watching a great show. But what is that second layer there? Or some videos I released recently, I made one that was like in defense of Logan Paul and David Dobrik. Because people like shitting on them because, yeah, they made some controversial decisions, did some dodgy stuff. But what about the context that we all created that put them in that situation where they're like, cool, we're making lots of money, we're getting fame, everything's telling us we're heading in the right direction, when really they're heading, head down, face first into a brick wall. But it's like trying to understand, like, why did they get to that situation?
Well, I mean, we're feeding into what they want to at the end of the day. Like, as much as like they're doing controversial stuff, we're the ones that they're talking about it, sharing it, like with our friends and whatever. So it's...
And the fact they're young. They've had no traditional experience. They got lucky early on. They were getting millions of dollars before they hit the age of 19. And it's like, well, if you're getting every metric of success saying you're doing the right thing. So I think oftentimes we're too easy to throw hate or blame and not realizing that we're actually at fault in a lot of these situations. And yeah, especially as well, I've listened to a lot of American podcasts or finance creators or whatever that is. And you're like, at some point you just click off because you're like, this is so lack of international perspective, and trying to provide a bit of that as well, I think is so valuable. People who have lived around the world, people who have been around so many different people from so many different places of so many different contexts. Like sometimes these attitudes that you see is like, oh, you just need to post content and you go viral. It's like, that's not how it works. I'm around so many people that have posted thousands of videos over so many years and it just hasn't clicked. Yeah. And there's so many different angles to that, but just providing a bit of that international perspective, I think is so important and that is so currently lacking. Like my mate and I, Val out of Vienna, he produces phenomenal content for Central European creators there. And we counted a lot of Colin Samir's videos. We love the guys, but like 80% of the creators are American and maybe like 70% of them are male. And it's like, we got to shift this sort of demographic here because there's so many people that are simply just being overlooked. So like, can we try and do a bit of that? And provide a bit more of that spotlight on those people, because there's so much, like the Rolling Stone Top 100 Creators list that had Huck Tour Girl in there and not the Sidemen.
I know, I remember seeing that on the list. I thought that was nuts. Like the Huck Tour Girl, I'm like, are you serious?
Top 100, are you like...
She made one video, no?
Like, no one on that list could sell out Wembley. Maybe Beast, maybe if you really tried, no one else could sell out Wembley. And yet they weren't on that list. And you're like, this is so demented. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry my former colleagues are #paid, but like, what are you doing there with that? Because they collabed with Rolling Stone.
I completely forgot about the Huck Tour Girl until you mentioned it. I just thought it was nuts.
It's so nonsense. The idea that just viewership matters. But it's like viewership is meaning. You see so many people with like tens of millions of followers and they're absolutely broke. Like you saw Dylan Page come out with a video a couple of days ago. He's the biggest news creator in the world. And he just now is abandoning TikTok because he's like, I'm not being paid anything. That gives into the fact that Australians aren't just paid at all. Like we were completely left out of it.
We don't have,
That's
what was
a
it?
topic
TikTok.
The Creator Fund is just
Creator
not.
Fund,
It's in
we
6
don't have
countries.
that.
It's like the US, UK, Italy, and a couple more.
Yeah,
It's
we
like,
don't have it. We just don't have it.
So that makes it even harder. But the fact that like now videos are being suppressed, I've seen more and more over the past couple of days, people talk, because with the new US TikTok sale, that all of a sudden a lot of their videos have just been absolutely demolished, whether it be because they're deliberately suppressing certain types of content or it's just fucking around as they're changing systems. I don't know. That's still to be found out. But they have absolutely changed certain terms of policy that are a lot more aggressive. So it's the whole bullshit attitude of like, oh, we're trying to protect our citizens by making American owned. And this as it becomes American owned, it becomes a lot more aggressive and a lot more intolerable. And I think there's so much there as well, going right back to the beginning of the podcast, talking about sort of creating that adequate fourth estate again. Back in the day, a lot of it was that climate change thing of like, you see Murdoch, like the entire Australian media ecosystem is owned by either Nine Entertainment or Murdoch. And then you have like ABC and SBS, there's problems there with them. But the point being really, it's owned by 2 people. And it's like, okay, you really have this young generation of people who can't afford homes, who aren't getting represented in terms of policy decisions, who are just struggling to get by. And I think now you're starting to see a bit of a shift because with the rise of creators, you're finally having voices rise up who actually represent that demographic that was previously overlooked. Whether you have it with like the people like Gary Stevenson in the UK who are completely changing the narrative around wealth taxes, or whether you have it with Friendly Geordies who are exposing a lot of the corruption within the Australian political space. You're just having this finally an opportunity for people who like, there's a really interesting take with again like a Chomsky analysis of media that you might have reporters being like, I'm not being told what to say at this news institution, but you wouldn't have been hired if you didn't already agree with the editor. And the editor wouldn't have been hired if they didn't agree with the ownership. Yeah. So it creates this ecosystem where there's a certain worldview being pushed, even if it doesn't necessarily agree with the actual populace.
Yes.
So that's what I loved about the creator scene is that, yeah, there's still algorithmic controls that can kind of influence what gets pushed. And that's a problem in itself. But by and large, you're not having an editor dictate what can or can't be said or what does go on the front page and what gets put in the back page. Like you even had Al Jazeera put out a scathing report, especially in regards to sort of the Palestinian conflict, that publications like the New York Times and BBC were deliberately suppressing sort of Arabic and Muslim voices. People like, I can read Arabic, that's not what this says. And like, no, but this IDF soldier told us that's what this says. He's like, I can read this, and completely being dismissed despite that fact. So just providing, and you saw that when they were trying to ban TikTok, is that they put this guise of like protecting national security, but they would also say publicly in interviews it's because they didn't like the messaging that was on the platform, because they couldn't control it like they could with Facebook and other platforms.
It was so
Well, it's
weird.
even here in Australia, like how they've like created the under 16 rule, but it's not actually like, I don't think it's actually a thing. It's just like, are you over the age of 16? Yes. Like you can still access it. Like it's this whole ploy to
they didn't have any
control the
plan of how
narrative.
they would actually implement it.
It's not possible. Like I think kids are way smarter than these guys that are trying to like control and manipulate the narrative.
I think it's probably a good thing for social media because like kids probably should have the ability to operate without FOMO and cyberbullying, whatever. But my problem with that was the fact that YouTube was included, because YouTube isn't a social media, it's a library.
Yes.
And there might be dangerous books in a library, but if you just pretend that kids aren't going in there when they're just going to be using their parents' account now, like you've created no safeguards, or at least if you know that they're 14, you can be like, cool, we're going to block off this section that has like Mein Kampf and other problematic works. Yeah. But you shouldn't ban it entirely, because that's what substituted for like sort of a deteriorating education system that doesn't really live up in the 21st century was YouTube.
I think at this rate also, I think it's just a matter of educating, because like they're going to find out anyway. Like does it really...
It's like teaching abstinence throughout the United States. It's like, yeah, like that's going to reduce teen pregnancy. Like it actually makes it worse.
Exactly, 100%.
It's the same thing, pretending like, oh, like we're just going to ban YouTube because that will make things better.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Literally. It's like every rebellious kid ever, when they're told no, like they'll find a way to go do
Exactly.
it. But
Like my friends who had the most helicopter parents are probably the ones doing the worst shit.
Exactly.
'Cause they needed a way to break out. When parents were like, cool, have fun, just text us when you're getting home. I'm like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
And I did absolutely nothing because I'm like, I didn't feel like I had to.
How do you feel like your belief of just life has changed coming overseas, doing all that, coming back here, and now being back in Sydney? Where do you feel like you sit now, just in the belief of like content and you and your space and their space and our space? Like where do you sit in that?
Ooh. I think it made me realize how much more is possible being over there, because you're seeing people doing crazy things and you're like, oh, that's achievable. Where in Oz, there wasn't people who were doing it ahead of you to be like, okay, that's the path that I can take. So just being around more people who are doing crazy things, who motivate you, who are like, cool, this is how you can level your game up. Teaching you different things. So like I had a friend who just like bullied me into writing better LinkedIn posts. And now I can write great LinkedIn posts, but it's because he harassed me for months about trying to improve that game. Or another friend who's just obsessed with like doing funnels and teaching me how you can go from like a free lead magnet to like a 7,000 pound product. And you're like, okay, that's insane. And there's so many different like little niche skill sets that you can pick up on of people just doing their own thing that I think I've really been able to learn. And I think there is probably some things that you get from living around the world, a certain level of independence or perspective that you can pick up on, and probably just understanding the fact that there isn't a unilateral way of doing things, that there isn't one way that works, that you have this perception that like, here's the recipe for success, and you see someone else doing the exact opposite and doing just as well. And I think being around so many different people, you sort of just see different ways that things are done. That cool, you can have Mr. Beast doing really well, and you can have Creator Camp, which is like really slow cinematic diary entries, and they both thrive. And I think that is really what gets to be built up, is seeing so many different examples of what can work and just trying to take little bits and pieces of each one. And I think that's what you really develop from being around so many different people in so many different places, doing so many different things within the broad same umbrella of the industry.
It's a matter of just like sharing sort of the knowledge to, I guess us in Australia who don't get that access to, the people that you've been able to also reach out to is just so important. But I think it's inspiring because like, I think it's like what you did, it makes it like, oh, now it's possible. And it's always possible, but seeing someone else do it from the same, sort of Australian background, it's like, okay, but it's really possible. It makes it more real, But, I think coming from my background, it's just been lucky because I've just been so international. So I've been able to see what the world has to offer. Whereas some people who are just from Melbourne and have never left Melbourne or never left Sydney or Brisbane, it's like, they don't know what's out there. But like their mindset is so like, can't do this, can't do that. But like you can, you just gotta do it. Just gotta do it.
I find that interesting. I noticed at first you'd have all these like immigrant stories of people having to abandon their lives in their home country. Yeah. And you have the stereotype, but there's probably some legitimacy in it, that they're just able to build up so much so quickly, whether it be starting up a shop or whatever that is, because they've done it before. It's like, even if you haven't gone to the gym for a year, the fact that you have done the gym before means you're able to build up muscle so much more quickly. And I think there's this perception that, for one, your body kind of remembers, and also you're able to take leaps because you know where you're going to land. Where if you're kind of walking around in the dark, you're having to take small steps because you don't want to trip and fall. But if you've done it before, you're like, cool, if I take this leap, I know exactly what I need to put under me so that I'm secure to take the next leap. So you're able to make such much bigger strides because you kind of know what's coming next. And it's why like secondary founders are able to do so much better, because they know what are the steps in this process. I'm not having to sort of figure it out as I go. I know, cool, I need to create some sort of minimal viable product, and I need to see if the customers are interested. Then I need to get investors or whatever that is. Yeah. I think that ability just to take those big leaps allows you to progress so much faster and take much bigger swings before, the time slot has run out and next opportunity you need to find and discover.
Yeah, well, it's why all the most successful business owners have failed, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, like however many times, because I guess each time they fail, they develop a new set of skill sets, and then it's like you strip everything away from them, but the skill set remains, then you just build on top of that as well. So
it's a recipe in a lot of ways. That is the one sort that is a recipe of like, maybe not what gets created, but how it gets created. And there might be different strategies here and there, but it is still like hearing a lot of Dan Priestley's talk that I managed to meet a lot in the UK. He's an Australian entrepreneur, has now built up a lot of his notability in the United Kingdom, but just really breaking down what is that business building process. And while it's not for me, because I don't have any interest in building for the sake of building, I want the purpose of why I'm building and what I'm building. I think to me that's more important. But just seeing how much of a replicatable process it is in terms of the hiring or the building and that whole thing. And I think that's important to know those steps, even if maybe you don't follow it completely. At least you know, okay, what is that path ahead if I so choose to do it? Where I think down the line, I'd love, sure, maybe I'll start off separate things that can stand by themselves. Like I'd love at some point to have a Creators Trove YouTube channel that can operate without me, something that can expand without the need of my face. But initially having more of that Ryan Trahan setup where he was expanding like people thought they should. And then he just wiped out his entire team and just said, no, it's just going to be like 3 of us. Because that's something that's controllable. We can have a nice pace. All of us can do really well. We're not having to like struggle because we're trying to pay out 10 people. And I think that works a lot better, just having that tight-knit team that can just operate. So down the line, the next steps is like, okay, can I hire an editor so I can just worry about collecting content? They can handle the back end, and a graphic designer that can help put the magazine together, because I'm doing this all for the first time. And I'm sure that while it's good, there are people who are way better than me who'll be able to do a much more better job. It's hard to get minimalism wrong. And that's why I made it a minimalism design. So I'm like, that's easy enough to put together. But for the next one, I'd love to make it more of a scrapbook. And I think that would be really cool.
That
but
would be
I do not
cool.
have the skills to do that. So I would need help by that point to put together.
But it's good that you know like where your valuable set lies and where other people's valuable set could lie that could expand it further than beyond you. Because I think we're learning that as well in business, obviously doing a social media agency for business owners. You know, yes, we can go there and film it and edit it and plan it and do the strategy and all that. But then how can we grow just from the two of us? That's not going to happen, right? Obviously, there's going to be editors who are better and quicker and faster and videographers who, you know, can do the same job that Jadyn's doing, you know, but it's like, how can we, you know, grow beyond that and make sure that we're still spreading what our core message is like a matter of taking control of your social media. That's the reason why we started it, right? So how can we spread that message and knowing that, yeah, we have our valuable set, but then finding the people that can make it grow is just so much more important. So it's just part of that journey. I mean, I didn't know how to run a business until we started this business. So I wouldn't even say I know the extent of it until we start growing the business. So yeah, it'd probably be the same process as well. But I think everyone goes through that sort of step.
What's next?
What
is next? Yeah.
I think some of the goals for this year is I'm heading back to London sort of mid-March after that event that we're putting together. And then I think we'll be continually trying to the main thing at the moment is that during London, while you're trying to freelance, while you're trying to collect content, you have no time to actually edit any of it. So I have so much footage. Like I just got out that Max Flamenco video. I've got so much footage with like Thomas and Amar. I have so much footage with Jack Conti and so many different people that is still sitting in the hard drives. And I just need to head down. I wrote something before I left for Melbourne that was like just nothing but video, that I can't distract myself with doing another newsletter. I can't distract myself with another LinkedIn post. I just have to wipe out that hard drive because it's better that it gets out like 80% done than stays in the hard drive for a potential 100% that will never actually happen. So I just need to get those out so it shows the experiences that I've had, the stories. Because I tell people, I'm like, have you not posted about this? I'm like, no, I haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah. So I think it's so important for me to get these pieces of content out. So that people can see, once again, it provides that vision of what's possible for themselves, some of the learnings from some of these really incredibly wise people. And then once I do that, it's, I guess, starting to collect more content, working on the next magazine. Hopefully by that point, I'm able to start hiring out, building out a team that can help with the editing so I can just focus on collecting. They can do the edit. Graphic designer can put things like carousels together, work on the magazine, putting the next issue together. Yeah. And that's really the process that I want to build towards while doing that same thing for Australia of hosting the events, bringing in finances and creating that spotlight for people.
Wow.
What an incredible journey. Like, thank you so much for sharing. I've just been sitting here just like listening, to be honest. I feel like I've normally got something to say, but you've been nothing short of amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your journey. Is there anything like you'd like to leave on or any other questions?
I have no questions.
No questions?
Where can people access this?
Yes. How can we support you?
Well, you can watch a million different videos that I have online at the moment on my YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. They tend to be the main places that I focus on. And obviously shop.creatorstrove.com if you want your own copy of the Creators Trove magazine. Because you saw the published press, and I love those guys, but they make a newspaper. And I'm like, I can't compete with the speed that they have because they just have a much bigger team than I do. But I can do something on the complete opposite end. While they have the Corolla, that's great and practical, can I make like the McLaren, where it's like a complete coffee table photo book? Photography is my skill set, so how can I try and double down on that? So I figured, why not make a 124-page like coffee table book with images and stories from your favorite creators around the world? So that's what I've done. You can get that at shop.creatorstrove.com or check out all the video interviews on my Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Be sure to rate the show 5 stars. Chuck us a subscribe. Leave a like.
Sneaky.
You better. We're watching you.
I know, literally. Please do all the things that you need to do that will support us and also support you. Yes. And we will catch you in the next episode.
See you later.
Bye-bye.